Glenn Juday. I'm a professor emeritus of forest ecology at the University of Alaska Fairbanks in the School of Natural Resources and Extension.
That, Professor Emeritus, congratulations, that is quite an honor. So you're here presenting at AGU. Is this your first AGU conference? Have you been?
That's about my 11th.
11 in a row or sort of scattered?
Yeah, I think it's in a row. Years ago, I formed a collaboration with US geoscientists who were building what has now become the climate change science centers that they have to try to find ways of pulling together teams that covered a diversity of topics, a lot of them biophysical, and the ecological consequences of that to better understand climate change. And they participate pretty vigorously in AGU, and they started having side meetings here, and so that's when I became part of this whole event.
You try to get out, they keep dragging you back in. So you're presenting a poster here today, and a little bit of your poster is talking about the changes that are happening in boreal forests in Alaska, and throughout the Arctic, I imagine, but Alaska is sort of where you've conducted your research.
That's right. So the line of research that I've been doing is trying to understand how climate operating in its historical mode and climate change now affect the growth, the health, survival of trees and forests. So I've had this line of work, and it identified that we passed a major milestone of change. Change occurred climatically in Alaska very suddenly. In 1976 to 77, there was just a big shift. This had many different expressions. It was in the marine environment, it was elsewhere. And at this meeting and in this poster, what I'm particularly highlighting is the larger context of how we've understood forests and their relationship, their growth, health, survival to climate, and now some differences that we can see across that climate regime shift when we just switched to a much warmer climate that we've maintained and has evolved ever since.
And we were talking a little bit before, and you're not an alarmist. You're not saying this is some red alert, everybody go to your bunkers type of situation.
Well, the world has gone through enormous periods of climatic change in the past, and every organism that is alive today is the descendants of those that survived. Okay, so there's enormous adaptive capacity in there. Now, the big challenge that we face is that humans have requirements or needs in natural resource systems. Those may get really badly disrupted and essentially not be available to us anymore. And some species may get in a pinch to the point where they'll face real survival challenges on into the future. Those are the two things that make climate change such a big concern. But underlying all of that, there's a lot of adaptive capacity in our ecosystems and in the organisms that are on the Earth. And so a lot of our research in this field is simply trying to understand that. What capacity do they have? What puts them at risk? What are pathways or avenues of survival and adaptation that they have? It's a big, complicated story, and so we've got a lot of work to do to figure this out.
How do you cut through all the noise and the politicization of climate change to get your data to be really listened to by policymakers?
Credibility, I think, is the key. It's building a relationship of trust that whenever asked as a scientist and offering a scientific opinion, ground it in empirically verifiable information, or if there's an uncertainty term, being really clear about that up front, and just having a record of consistently doing that. And you build a relationship of trust, and then people who are confronted with some really tough decisions to make about these challenges will have the confidence they need to rely on it and to use it appropriately. Doesn't mean that like my own personal preference in the policy response is going to get implemented, and sometimes people are going to go the opposite way. What you might think you'd be inclined to do, but if you just accept that as part of the process and have confidence that ultimately enough information and enough people and enough thinking about and considering these issues is going to focus our minds and give us some real options that we actually do face and can realistically deal with. That's the best way.
My last question is, why do you, as a professor emeritus, keep working at UAF? You could be on a beach somewhere. Why are you working there? What brings you back?
I started that's a great question. I guess it's partly a sense of responsibility. I started focused climate change work in 1980. That's decades ago now. And it was a tough slog initially to get people to understand or take this seriously. And I've spent a whole career developing the skills and the ability to investigate and to teach and to understand this. And you culminate in your I'm probably not going to get any better at this in the future, but I am probably better at it now than when I started. So to just stop, to flip a switch and to stop, it just didn't seem right to me. And that sense of responsibility and also the opportunity to hand the baton on to the next generation. Wonderful, wonderful young people we're pulling into science and education and our natural resource agencies. I just really want to try to help them out. And they say an expert, somebody who has made every possible mistake. So I want to be an expert for these young people and help them make fewer mistakes than I made as I was coming through.
Thank you very much for taking some time away.